And so, The Last of Us Season 2 stumbles and flops to its conclusion like a fat guy trying to pole vault in the middle of a storm of fan backlash, cratering audience scores, and viewing figures that HBO conveniently doesn't talk about anymore. In short, this season has been nothing short of a complete and total disaster. A boring, bleak, depressing, badly written slog of a show that actually strained the very limits of my endurance just to get to the ends. And I've watched The Acolyte.
We were on the brink of extinction!
And the thing that's so sad about this whole thing is that this disaster was entirely predictable. In fact, I predicted it months before the season even started in this video right here. But man, even I couldn't have imagined just how bad it was gonna be, apart from a couple of half-decent action set pieces where all that HBO money was on full display, and a performance from Pedro Pascal who was clearly doing his best to carry the entire show on his back. Season 2 has been absolute trash from start to finish. Boring when it should have been compelling, laughable when it should have been poignant, frustrating when it should have been exciting, preachy, self-indulgent and pretentious. It's everything the game was but dialed up to 11. And now that it's finally over and we've had the full Season 2 experience, I think now's as good a time as any to reflect on where exactly The Last of Us went wrong. So grab your potato masher and let's explore the top 5 reasons this show went off the rails. Problem number 1. Joel. It's no secret that killing off Joel in the first few hours of the game has gone down in history as one of the worst narrative decisions that anyone's ever made, ever. Well, I said one of the worst. And you'd think that 5 years of fan backlash, alternative suggestions, and endless video essays would have convinced Neil Druckmann to do something a bit different this time around. But nope, there it is, almost beat for beat exactly like in the game, at the same exact point in the narrative. And as it turns out, it was just as unpopular now as it was 5 years ago. Not only did killing off the protagonist of the first season in such a pointless, brutal manner leave a sour taste in people's mouths, but it also left a gaping hole in the show that no other character could possibly fill. The relationship between Joel and Ellie was the beating heart of both the game and the show, and without it, The Last of Us lost that vital element that kept people engaged. It's humanity. And there's really no getting around this. Pedro Pascal was by far the best thing about The Last of Us. Ha! Gay! Yeah, he's arguably overhyped and overexposed as an actor, and I'm still not convinced he was the best man for the job, but one thing I can't deny is that the guy can fucking act. Pascal brought some much needed authority, gravitas and believability to the show, and with him out of the picture, it was up to problem number 2 to carry this show. Which brings me neatly along to problem number 2. Ellie. There are certain unavoidable truths that have to be reconciled in life, dear viewer. 1. True happiness is something that you only recognise once it's gone. 2. Aerith is objectively the better girlfriend for Cloud in Final Fantasy VII. And 3. Bella Ramsey was the wrong fucking choice to play Ellie. Now, I'm not here to shit all over her appearance or hate on her as a person, because that's pretty unfair and mean-spirited. She's just an actor doing a job, and believe it or not, she actually comes across as pretty likeable and down to earth in interviews, but the harsh reality is that not every actor can play every role. They have to physically embody the character they're playing, and if they can't do that, they at least have to capture the essence of that character's personality. Clearly, Ramsey doesn't look anything like Ellie, so the first option's right out the window, but she also doesn't have the acting range to embody Ellie either. Her performance ranges from so wooden you could build a log cabin out of it, to so over the top that it makes Nick Cage look like Anthony Hopkins. None of it feels believable. She's laughable when she's trying to be intimidating, obnoxious when she's trying to be likable, and weirdly disconnected when she's trying to be tender and vulnerable. Much as I dislike the game, one thing I can't deny is that Ashley Johnson fucking crushes it as Ellie, and comparing some of their most iconic scenes, you can't help but notice the massive gulf of talent between her and Ramsey. It's a lethal combination that absolutely kills your investment in the character, and it doesn't help that she's been written as a completely different person from the game. Game Ellie was a broken woman for most of part 2, completely consumed with revenge to the point where it takes a visible toll on her mind and body. Yeah, it was depressing, but it at least made sense, and it perfectly fit with the theme of revenge ultimately costing both parties everything. TV show Ellie is completely different though. You can practically feel the insecurities of the writers shining through, where they try so hard to make her tough and resilient, where she used to be open and trusting, and instead of being strong and determined, she just comes across as prickly, arrogant and aggressive. Her relationship with Dina has gone from teetering on the brink of collapse to some idyllic teen romance where they're cracking jokes, smiling, laughing and fucking like they don't have a care in the world. They never really argue or fall out, they see everything pretty much the same way, and they're both so frustratingly agreeable that you have to wonder why Dina even exists. It makes zero fucking sense, and it leaves you with this horrible nagging feeling that Joel's death really didn't make much of an impression on Ellie at all. Problem number 3, the pacing. The pacing of Last of Us Season 2 is absolutely abysmal. In the games, this was less of a problem because the player was in control most of the time and cutscenes only came up occasionally to move the story along. Here though, that's literally all we've got, and it doesn't take you long to realise that there really isn't much of a story to tell here, and so a good chunk of the season is just time-wasting, busy work bullshit. How many times do we have to watch Ellie and Dina wandering through a forest or a deserted city, swapping shit jokes and pointless banter that tells us nothing about them, or moves the plot forward, or builds up the worlds? How many tedious sex scenes did they have to cram in that feel completely out of step with two people in a tense survival situation where death can come at any moment? Yeah, there's nothing like being freezing wet and cold and surrounded by zombie fungus monsters to get you in the mood. There were whole episodes where nothing of any significance happens and I was bored out of my mind, and it all feels like such a waste of potential. It's the hallmark of self-indulgent hubris on the part of the showrunners, the belief that they're producing such artistic perfection that the audience will just luxuriate in every second of it. It's a show about mushroom zombies, mate. Get a fucking grip. Problem 4, the writing. Everyone in this show is a fucking idiot, from Ellie and Dina just casually riding down the middle of a city street that could be crawling with enemy troops, to the wolf leaders who decide to occupy a hospital that's infected with airborne virus spores that could infect them at any moment, to Joel and his complete refusal to stand up for himself or explain his past actions, to Abby walking off and leaving someone who's clearly gonna come after her for revenge later. Nobody's actions make any fucking sense, it's all just done in service of the plot, and that's not even counting the dialogue that's so cringe-inducing it feels like even an AI would refuse to spit it out.
I'm gonna be a dad. Yeah.
Come on guys, that couldn't have even sounded good in your heads. Problem 5. The message. Yeah, you probably knew this bit was coming, and for good fucking reason. The game was notorious enough for being aggressively pro-current thing, but the show takes it to such a ludicrous degree that it actually becomes laughable. The whole £100 actress beating up a bunch of accommodating stuntmen routine has been done so many times that I'd become kind of numb to it by this point. But then we're treated to the insane sight of Bella Ramsey, who looks like a small child at the best of times, literally overpowering a man who's at least twice her size and many times her strength. What, are you retarded? Who the fuck do you think is gonna buy something like this? Like, seriously guys, did your fight choreographer not put up his hand at some point and say, I don't think this is working, I don't think people are gonna believe this. But the girl bossing doesn't end there, dear viewer. Not by a long way. I can pretty much guarantee that almost every position of command and authority is going to be held by a woman in this show, and every military unit will be at least 50% female, because as we all know, putting women of childbearing age on the front line is definitely a smart move when the human race is teetering on the brink of extinction. And I'm not kidding, there's even a point where a heavily pregnant woman is somehow allowed to go out into hostile territory, like she's not going to be a complete liability to herself and everyone around her. Son of a bitch! What the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, do you really think that anyone in their right mind believes this nonsense for 1 second? The inconvenient truth is that if The Last of Us actually happened for real, women would never be allowed anywhere near combat, or danger in general for that matter, because they're too valuable to risk losing. They wouldn't be allowed out on patrol, they wouldn't serve in military units, and they probably wouldn't be in positions of frontline command either. They would be at home, having babies and keeping things running behind the lines, lines, while the men took all the risks and made most of the big decisions. Is it glamorous? No. Does it fit with modern progressive politics? Also no. But funnily enough, all that stuff tends to go out the window once people start dying and all the safeguards and comforts of modern society get stripped away. You really would be amazed how quickly the idea of girl bossing dies out when people have to take actual physical risks and put their lives on the line. On the other hand, the male characters around them are usually portrayed as corrupt, bigoted or cowardly at worst, and at best benignly agreeable and progressive, always happy to take insults and disrespect without ever giving anything back, and defer to their betters because again, that's how guys like Neil Druckmann in their comfortable 21st century progressive bubble imagine that the world would look. And in a show that's so desperate to be taken seriously, it's amazing how much The Last of Us relies on cliched tropes that became outdated and laughable half a decade ago. It's a show born from bad source material, adapted into a preachy, self-indulgent mess by a man whose activism was always more important than storytelling, repeating the same mistakes he made with the game but still expecting a different result. The Last of Us Season 2 really was the most predictable of disasters. They knew what they were heading towards, they had every opportunity to change course and do things better this time, but instead they just ploughed on, too arrogant to listen and too zealous to change. Well, you really did get what you deserve, and The Last of Us deserved the failure it created for itself. I'm just fucking glad I don't have to watch any more of it for a couple of years. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.